You and your life are a collection of patterns, and if you can think in patterns, this is going to help you out a lot for this topic of shifting timelines. I want to give you some examples of patterns so that you understand a bit more of what I'm talking about. Your exercise routine, your morning routine, your work schedule, your eating patterns, your relationship patterns, your emotional patterns, self-avoidance, self-criticism, self-sabotage, things like this. The time you wake up, the time you go to bed. Our mind forms patterns automatically. This is what the subconscious does, and then it just kind of carries them out in this autopilot fashion. And the timeline that you are on is going to be a collection of all these various patterns. And they just do themselves over and over and over again without you really needing to apply any presence to them, any conscious attention to them. That's kind of the nature of the subconscious. It just does the thing without you even needing to really fully understand or know that you're doing it and what it is you're even doing. So if you want to actually shift timelines, if we want to kind of break this down to the most simple thing possible, and the most simple statement, you need to become aware of the patterns that you are in and start choosing new patterns. The thing about the patterns that you're in, though, going back to that first point, is that they become this sort of self-reinforcing bubble. You're scared to break out of them, right? A lot of our patterns were created for survival reasons. We wanted safety, so we started doing a particular thing. It helped us to cope with life, helped us to, let's say, avoid pain. It helped us to get our needs met. So we found comfort in doing particular patterns. The thing is, though, is that at one point, a pattern doesn't really work anymore. A lot of the patterns that people do are things that they were conditioned with in childhood, and by the time they're, like even in their teenage years, it's actually not working very well anymore. They're suffering because of those old patterns. They struggle to actually adapt and change and move with life. People struggle to create a new pattern that doesn't actually create so much dysfunction, that isn't so imbalanced. And if you're trying to shift to a new timeline, I'm going to assume that you want to experience more balance. You want to experience more well-being. You want to be happier. I would assume that that is the underlying goal that you actually have. So we establish patterns for many reasons, survival being the number one reason. Survival, safety, getting our needs met, things like this. You need to keep that in mind. So these patterns form our sense of self, they form our sense of reality, and this is very useful for survival. And these patterns reinforce themselves over and over and over and over again. It becomes the force of habit. We do it and we do it again, we do it again, we do it again, we do it again. We think that this is just who we are, just how life is, just how life works, but it really isn't. So shifting timelines simply equals challenging patterns and choosing to create a new one. And the thing is because our patterns are so tied into survival, you can expect that when you challenge it, there's going to be a force, a counterforce that's going to aim to hold it in place. This is a kind of element of systems thinking, right? It's a bit off topic, but essentially, when you challenge a system or a pattern, that system doesn't just break and collapse automatically, but it wants to maintain its survival. Just like if someone tried to kill you, for example, you would have a whole bunch of drives to want to maintain yourself because you care about survival, right? You're a system, you're a collection of patterns. You want to keep surviving. So when you challenge a pattern in your life, it doesn't just like give way. But what usually happens is that you get subconsciously afraid to break out of it. There's all these subconscious barriers that get created. Fears, beliefs, limiting beliefs, things like this. But not only that, it's also a matter of your ability to adapt to the change. So the change itself brings up discomfort. Even challenging the pattern that we're in can bring up discomfort. So we have all these sort of reasons to remain in the current patterns. We have all these sort of mechanisms at place or in place to keep us where we presently are for survival purposes. So shifting timelines equals using your creative power to create a new pattern rather than unconsciously recreating the same thing over and over and over again. It's really as simple as I'm saying in this video. You need to recognize the patterns that you're in. You need to be able to identify them. The second you can identify them, you start to become more aware of them. You need to shine awareness without judgment on them. Pure observation of the pattern. And from that grounded and aware place, from that aware space, what are you going to create? Now you can break free of the pattern, because when you're in autopilot, you can't break free of the pattern. When you're in autopilot, it has you. It has its grips on you. But the second you're conscious, now you don't have to reenact the same pattern. Not that this is going to be easy, or that breaking out of a pattern is typically you're going to get it perfect on your first try. This is going to be a challenge for the most part, especially dependent on the purpose of the pattern that you're in, how deeply attached you are to it. So you need to understand that shifting the pattern is something that you have to choose again and again and again and again. Just like how your patterns were formed by you choosing to do something again and again and again and again. Right? How'd you learn how to walk? You were crawling and you got up and you attempted to walk and you fell. And you might have cried, you might have got hurt. But then you got up again, you did it, and you kept falling. Right? And then now you can just do it effortlessly. It's the exact same thing. You don't have to think twice about walking. It's so easy for you. But when you were 3 years old, it was really hard. You couldn't walk. You had no idea how to. It was scary. You had to take a risk. Right? It felt scary. So challenging patterns usually involves taking a risk as well. Just kind of on the topic of risk. It feels like risk, but for the most part, you're very secure to challenge your patterns. There needs to be enough risk, but simultaneously enough security so that you feel safe challenging the pattern. There needs to be enough safety for you to stand firmly on your 2 feet without being thrown off, and enough incentive, which usually comes in the form of pain, for you to challenge the patterns that you're in so that you can create something better for yourself. So again, this feels like taking a risk. This brings up fear. This brings up instinctual and unconscious avoidance. This can impulsively bring us to distract ourselves. We just kind of find ourselves looking at our phone here a lot more, going on YouTube a lot more, whatever it is. And the mind essentially has many mechanisms for maintaining itself. Like I said, the patterns reinforce themselves over and over and over again. So you choose a new path. You give your creative energy to it. You forge it. You create it moment by moment by moment. And it feels scary. You might not trust yourself. You might not even trust your skills, your knowledge. You might not trust your ability to create it, but that's why you can learn. That's why you can adapt. Trust your ability to learn, change, figure it out. If you don't have the skills at the moment or the knowledge, trust your ability to get those skills and that knowledge. So you forge the new path by repetitively doing it and consciously giving creative energy to it. Right? For example, for my life, I didn't always make YouTube videos like this, but they're very effortless for me to make. I can come up on here, I can talk very easily. It's not actually incredibly difficult. It comes naturally, whereas that wasn't always the case. At one point, of course, in my life, I couldn't even talk. Right? When I was 1 year old, I could not speak. So, of course, there was an element of doing a pattern over and over and over again and seeing what that created. And the pattern that you create, ideally, the timeline that you create, ideally is healing. You want the path to be a nourishing path for you. You don't want it to be a path that makes you sick, numb, dull, constantly distracted, constantly avoiding yourself. The timeline that you create for yourself is something that needs to allow you to live more fully. Allow you to engage all the aspects of yourself. so that you can really come alive. So you need to become conscious. You need to shine awareness on your unconsciousness, on the autopilot patterns, so it doesn't rule your life. Simple as that. From that space, what do you want to create? Now you have the freedom to create. The thing is, though, about 95% of our life, we're acting unconsciously for the most part. We're acting in this subconscious autopilot style fashion. That's why meditation, mindfulness is really important. That's why journaling is really important. That's why reading books is really important. You need to actually read the books on my book list. You need to read the psychology, read the therapy and healing, go to the spirituality section, go to the relationship section. You need help, right? Just like you have to admit that to yourself. You need help from people. You're not going to do it completely by yourself. You need to learn things and build knowledge, build skill, put it into practice. Right? I purposely used the word forge. You're forging the new path. Right? Like a blacksmith making a sword and he's hitting it over and over and over again. He's literally forging the sword by just hitting it with the hammer so many times, heating it up, etc. So from this conscious place, what do you want to choose? What do you want to create? What do you want to do? From the unconscious place, from the autopilot place, you already know what it is. It's the same old, same old. It's going to be some stuff that's probably pretty good, some stuff that doesn't serve you. You want to challenge the things that don't serve you. The things that aren't really working, you need to be honest about the fact that they're not working. You need the integrity, you need the awareness. You need to actually identify it. What's the pattern? Why is it not working? What's the need that it's trying to get met? How can I meet this need more directly? So that's it for this video. If you're interested in working with me one-to-one, you can apply to do so. Link is in the pinned comment. If you want my book list, it's in the description. Take it easy.